Hi guys, welcome to Monocure 3D Protips. Today I'm very excited because it has finally arrived. It's the Anycubic Photon M3 Max. It's massive, it's 13.6 inch LCD screen, is pure resin printing joy. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. This is going to be interesting to get out of the box. I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to cut down the bottom and see if this trick works. There you go, wow. I'm very surprised to see this is the first time I've ever seen it. In all these unboxings we've done, is an aluminium frame. That's got the accessories and things in here. Looks like they must be for, I know this has got a resin filler, so they must be the tubes for that. Standard gloves and tools, filters and masks and things, the metal scraper and the instructions. These are just going to pop straight off. And we're starting to see the print itself. So it looks like it's got a split lid on it. And then the other part is here. What's this? Some more instructions. It talks about the polarizing film on the actual screen, on the LCD screen. It's telling you not to remove it. Now I know there's been some confusion with that in the past. People have accidentally removed that. So it's actually good that they're putting that there. This is getting exciting now. That there is for the resin feeder. Looks like something for potentially for the resin feeder again. Power cord, here's the power adapter, an external one. So here we go. Now this is going to get interesting now. Whoa. Now that is what I call a build plate. Happy to see, and I know John will be rapt when he sees this, that they've gone with that checker etching on the build plate. I know John's been super happy with its performance and how well the models stick to it without having to really increase the cure times. We haven't seen other printer manufacturers copy this approach yet, but we've still got the 4 leveling screws here and here. It's a solid piece of aluminium with a little slight beveled edge there to let the resin drip off. So that's an impressive build plate. All right, now here comes the vat. Straight away I've looked at this and I'm thinking, wow, that's big. Not sure why they've gone with a frosted FEP. I know that some of the guys who've got this before me have changed over to our XXL FEP films and there's been no problem whatsoever. But it looks like it's a standard setup with a million screws this time to undo. There is the handy piece of paper for leveling. That's what I think of that. And then that looks like to me the screen protector. We can see that this has really been packed well. It's got these huge big cable ties. You can see that that's the 2 little sensors there and for the resin filler. That's definitely the bulk of the printer right there. The first thing I've noticed is this interesting new way, and I guess it's a size thing, that they've dealt with how to fit the build plate. There is, as I mentioned, the polarizing filter on here. We've got the small touchscreen there, pretty standard. Around this side, we can see that we have the standard stickering with the barcode and the RoHS certification. Here's the resin filler. It's got a really decent double rail here. Interesting, they have put a bearing up the top here and locked it in place. Anyway, just quickly around here, got the USB port, one in the side there. That's for the power connection. Around the back, we've got a couple of fans. That must be a filter fan there. It also has a couple of these little feet holes here. I guess that's to slot it in. And you can see on the bottom here, you've got these little white plasticky looking feet that obviously slot in these holes here. And then beside there, you've got the threaded hole for this. Now, I know that's a pretty simple way to do it, but to be honest, I'm not overly happy they can get dropped on the floor or lost, and without them, it makes it very difficult. The other reason, I'll tell you why I don't like this system, is this here. They've done a really good job, and this is the first time I've seen this, of the whole top of this actually being sealed, except for these 2. But if you happen to have a resin leak without these in place, resin could get inside the guts of the machine, and that does cause problems. But hopefully they can rectify that on future models. Just having a quick look for the end stop sensor. Okay, I've spotted it. It's hard to see. It's right down in there. You have a printer, which is this big, that can print this high and this wide, well, be honest, that big. Why on earth is the vat only that deep? I don't understand that. I know they've included the pump in it, and that's a great addition if it works well. We'll wait and see. I just kind of feel that for the sake of, you know, another inch or two, it'd be nice to just make it a little bit thicker. At least it is an aluminium vat. Things like aluminium vats versus plastic vats is certainly something that you want to consider. The plastic vats, they can bend, they're going to get damaged more quickly, and they're just not going to be as sturdy or robust and last as long. I have noticed this here though, that is a nice touch, and that's this pouring spout, which is a really nice way to get it back into the bottle. Let me just quickly run through the specs. The printing accuracy is 6,480 by 3,600 pixels, or it's a 7K screen. Light source is a parallel matrix LED lights. The build plate is laser engraved. The control panel is a 4.3-inch resistive touch control. The data input is a USB-A 2.0. The print size, 30 by 29.8 by 16.4 centimeters. It says printing volume. I'm not sure what that's referring to. It's 14.7 litres. It might be the build plate to the top and a big block of resin all the way up to the top. The machine size, to see if you can fit it in your space at home, is 59.6 by 40 by 40.8. Machine weight is 26 kilos. Well, there you have it, guys. It's an impressive looking printer. I'm really interested to see how John gets on with it. There's a little bit of work to do, and rather than doing that downstairs, why don't we bring John in here now, you know, start putting it together up here where there's a little bit more space, and then he can take it down to the print lab once that part of it's done.
We're going to first of all deal with the back panel for the printer itself. We'll attach that via its screws at the bottom here. Okay, we've got the holes where we need them to be. There's a slot at the back there on the aluminium frame for it to sit in. So you've got a little bag of screws that the small, looks like M3 screws. You'll line them up with the holes at the back here. So we start tightening up the screws. Don't go all the way though. Just keep in mind that you're putting metal against plastic here. If you go too tight, you will crack them. So now that we've got those in place, I'll tighten them up just a fraction. Let's just make sure that this sits nicely in there. There's certainly the option to have hinges on the side there. I probably wouldn't have hinges at the top, depending on the amount of space you've got above your printer, but I'd be inclined to go sideways and have a hinge that kind of goes that way. But some people are probably just as happy to take it off and put it out of the way. Let's plug her in for the first time. Hopefully we won't get any smoke flying out of it. And she's on. Looks like the usual menu system of all the other Anycubics I've dealt with. Pump is not going. You've got a green and a red light. Obviously that means something. We'll have to have a look at the manual and find out what that means. We're going to pull off the protective film on the top of the LCD screen. So this is what comes with the printer. There's a sticker that tells you to do this. So, you know, if that's what it says, let's do it. There's our beautiful clean polarizer on the top of the LCD screen. So the next thing I'm going to do is get this Z-axis out of the way. So we'll move it up on the menu system. So we go into Tools, go into Move, set it to 10 millimeters and start going up. Okay, that's high enough, so we'll just stop it there. Next thing we'll do is we'll grab the vat, take off the protective film. I have to say, it doesn't sound like it's very tight, but look at the size of it. Making that a higher pitch would be very difficult without it ripping, because that's a very big area that it's got to cover. If you have a look on the back here, these prongs, be very careful not to puncture anything with those. When the vat's in place, they get pushed down. As you can see, that doesn't sit very deep into the vat. Now, potentially you could bend those down a bit lower so that your liquid level is in line with where that max mark is. I'm going to leave that for now and just experiment to see how far up it goes before it turns off, to see how much liquid we end up in there. If it's too high, then we'll have to push those prongs down a bit. It looks like it's the same plastic that all the other previous models come with. Fortunately, I did find a cheap supplier for the aluminium knobs. We'll leave a link for that. That'd be one of the first things I do is swap out the plastic knobs for metal knobs. Let's have a look at the filling system. So here's your sensor that goes in the bottle. This is designed specifically for the Anycubic bottles. It plugs into that white connector at the back there. Now, it's not a very long cable, so this vat filling system is going to have to sit right next to the printer. The hoses that they give you are also very short. That might be another thing we upgrade. Give it a bit of distance from the printer so we can put larger bottles. We've got 5-litre bottles that we sell. The sensors that come with the Anycubic won't be long enough to reach right to the bottom of the 5-litre bottle, so that's our main reason that we may have to come up with our own sensor. We'll experiment with that and see what works. All right, so we've got our tubes. So essentially the way the system works is it pumps air into the bottle, and by doing so you're creating a positive pressure which then pushes the liquid up the wide tube, this one here, back into the vat. So the black one clearly is for the liquid to come from the bottle into the vat, because that will protect it from UV light. So we'll put that on the larger of the two tubes that's in there. So it goes on the one that connects up to that tube there, that aluminium tube, which has got a hole down the middle. The clear one will be for the air. Slide that on as far as it'll go, so you don't want that popping off. And then these will come through the rear hole, just so we can see what we're doing. Remembering that this is resin and that is the air. The air will come out of this pump here at the top near the LEDs. And this one is purely there to hold it in place to allow that liquid to come out of that spout there into the vat. So every time that these two contacts are out of the liquid, that will start spurting resin out of the bottle. Two holes in there that potentially get liquid down the holes into the guts of it, which is bad. There's also a little bit of a potential for some resin liquid to get in around this block here at the bottom that could get into the actual stepper motor itself. Also, there's an unprotected bearing at the bottom of the lead screw that potentially could also get resin inside it and seize up. The bottle holder, you may want to rethink the need for having the bottle directly behind the printer. I'd probably be inclined to have it off to one side so you can get to it. But essentially the way that this clip connects, if you have a look at the back here, we've got two screw holes and one screw that sits there, and we can see how that lines up with that plate there, and it's just going to attach itself to the back there. For the meantime, I'm not going to actually attach it because I just want this area to be free when I'm using it downstairs. All right, so let's level the build plate. We've got our build plate. We loosen our 4 screws on both sides there so that it can move up and down. Making note that once these screws are loosened, this plate does not sit very snug at all. That's something I'm not particularly happy about, because in the past, whenever there's been a bit of play, it potentially can make that plate rotate the smallest fraction, but it's enough to end up with a non-level plate. Potentially you could correct that just by taking the screws right out, loosening the 2 screws at the top here and moving those 2 plates out a fraction, but it hasn't really reduced it dramatically. What I might do next is this. Essentially, you just give it a little bit of a push inwards. Don't be too forceful on this though. That has closed the gap a bit better. So now let's reattach that, tighten that up. Get our vat, put it in place. If you have a look on that corner there, as I'm putting the vat in place, I'm making sure I'm pushing that down like that. Next thing, get our screws, put them in place. Let's go into our menu system and we'll go to Tools, we'll go to Move Z, and we'll click on the Home button. Very slow to home, and now it's in place. We'll just make sure that that's sitting flat on the FEP sheet. You don't necessarily have to hold it down when you're tightening the screws, but tighten them very, very slowly and a little at a time. Working from one side to the other. And then once you've got them reasonably tight, just give them that little bit extra. I think we're ready to take the whole thing down. We've managed to get the Photon M3 Max downstairs, a very heavy beast. The first thing we've got to do is to calibrate the resin that you've got. Now, we've never used this machine before, so we've got to work out what the exposure time is going to be for the resin that we're going to use. In this case, we're going to use Grey TUFF Grey. Now I've already put a little bit in there. I'm not going to use the pump system to start with because I don't need a lot of resin. So if we have a look on the front here and up the side here, you'll see I've got an option for the pump. So I can turn that off and on. At the moment, by default, it was set to off. So we'll leave that off for the meantime because we don't need it. And I've already sliced the model now. Software-wise, you've currently probably got 3 options. I haven't checked out Lychee Slicer yet. But I do know the latest version of the free Chai2 box does support this printer and the whole M3 range. Unfortunately, the Pro version doesn't quite yet support the M3. I'll probably still do my fancy supports in the Pro version of Chai2 box, and export that STL with its supports into the free version of ChituBox, and I've made a slice file using that, and it's on the stick here. Now, something interesting about this machine is that you can actually transfer files onto the internal storage. So if you have a look at the file, if I select it, you'll see there's a copy option here. Now if I tap that, it will copy it into internal storage. Let's switch over to internal storage and you can see the models there. Let's get this calibration print going. I've taken a wild guess here, 2-second exposures. It's probably a little bit overexposed, but we'll see. So we'll let that roll and we'll see what happens. Also keep in mind this is a massive surface area, so you don't want to be moving the head very quickly up and down because it's going to have a lot of suction force when the resin is squeezed tightly between the bottom of the vat and the build plate. Another thing I noticed is in the settings here, there is no real control over the exposure brightness as you would on the Mono X. So that's pretty much locked in at its maximum brightness. One thing I did notice though is this exposure off compensate. If that's on, it turns the light off and leaves it off for a very long period of time before it actually switches the light on between each layer, and that would make your print extremely slow. So I'll have to look into why they've got that option in there. For the meantime, I'll leave that off. So we'll let that roll and we'll see what we get afterwards, and we'll probably have to adjust that up or down. The calibration print has finished. One thing I did notice is that when the vat raises up and you get the drips dripping onto the surface of the resin, you end up with splashes on the inside of the box there. That's unfortunate. So anyhow, let's take this off and have a look at what we've got. Hopefully we've got a print sitting on the bottom there. There it is, right there. Always good practice to get some of these. We sell these on our store. Rather than save having to take this whole thing off, because it's only got one little part to pop off, I'm going to raise up the tray and we'll pop it off. And there it is. So let's go and clean this up in our resin away. All right, let's pull that out. Okay, looking at that, that's a little bit overexposed because you can see how the lettering looks a little bit fat compared to the original model. And the tips are certainly touching, but not over bloated. Another thing you'll notice is that the texture of the FEP sheet can be seen on that top surface there. So it's like it creates a matte surface essentially. And I guess one little downside of having a frosted FEP sheet is that it will cause the light to dissipate rather than being straight through the model. So if you've got clear resin, there's a chance that you might have a lot of blurring happening on details. Now looking at that, there might be a bit of blurring happening, which is what we're seeing on the text there. And I can still see that the hollows have worked out really well there. So now that we've established that this is a 2-second exposure, it looks a little bit over, we might try again at 1.8 seconds. Now I don't need to reslice this because I can change the settings on here. Select the option that's stored in memory there, go print, click on settings, and we'll change the exposure time for the normal exposure to 1.8. Bottom exposure, we'll make that 18. So one interesting thing that I've discovered is the auto feed option that we have. We can turn it on in the middle of a print job, but we've also discovered that the thread that they use for the Anycubic bottles actually fits the Monocure bottles as well. The only thing I would suggest you do is that you remove the bottom collar so that you can get a nice tight seal, and that will make it airtight, because it has to be airtight because it's pumping air inside that bottle to get the liquid to flow out the black tube. So we'll see how this print goes at 1.8 seconds and we'll get back to you. There's a 2-second print, here's our 1.8 second print. You can see the text is a little bit better defined. The tips of the arrow are only just touching, which is perfect, and it seems reasonably well defined. So 1.8 seconds seems to be the go for the tough grey resin. Now we're going to print something a lot bigger. That's going to use a good proportion of the build space that we have there. We'll cover the plate in models and we'll see how that prints. Let's have a closer look at what we've got here. Nice. We've got 20 really good looking models sitting on the plate there. What a time saver. If I was to do the same model on a little machine like the Hallett, probably only get 3 on there, maybe 2. On the Mono X, I was only getting 6. So now that saved me a lot of time. That pump system worked really well. And it's a fairly smart system as far as pumping the resin into the vat is concerned. It does it for 5 minutes, gives it a pause for about 6 minutes, comes back to it, checks to see if it needs more, pumps another 5 minutes worth of resin in, and when it detects that it's run out in the bottle, it just stops. And it lets you know, but it doesn't stop printing. So that's good, because we've still got plenty of resin left in there. So overall, really happy with this machine. It's well built, can't really fault it. Just keep in mind, guys, when you're printing and you're setting up your slicing, make it rise higher than you normally would on a smaller printer, because it has a FEP that's much larger and it will stretch much further. So make sure you go like 12 millimeters or more. I might throw back to Charlie now.
Thanks for the detailed update, John. Guys, if you have any questions, leave a comment below and we'll do our best to help you out. Don't forget to subscribe and follow our channel, but most importantly, remember to keep on 3D printing. See if I can get this back up. Okay, struggle straight a bit, but we're getting there somewhere. So, okay.